welcome to Ask Win, and thank you guys for all your love and support and prayers and higher power blessings, because I haven't fallen off the face of the planet Earth because of cerebral palsy. And yes, that has something to do with today's guest. Elena is an expert in stress. I don't know where she was last Tuesday when I needed her, and so basically we're going to be talking about stress and how to deal with it. I think I dealt with it pretty nicely when my aide kind of yelled at me for doing nothing, and so we're going to be talking about stress and graduation seasons. And yeah, I know I have a class member of 2018 who is my stepsister, who's getting a degree in communications on Saturday. And so it's time for all the 2018 graduates to step out into the real world and deal with the stress of the job hunt. So without further ado, I'm going to let Miss Elena take it away.
Hi. Well,
Hi.
I'm a psychologist who loves to deal with stress, so I'm happy to talk about anything stress and anxiety related. So your sister's looking for a job?
Yeah, she is. She's like most college students. She hasn't been in the workforce yet, and I've been talking to other friends, and they gave themselves the 6 months leeway and until they find a job. And with my job in journalism, I am still teaching, but I'm making the pivot into full-time journalism. And when I was talking to my job coach the other day, she literally bluntly said to me, when no one can find a job in journalism in this political climate, it has nothing to do with cerebral palsy. It has nothing to do with you, but no one can find a job. And trust me, I've found copywriting jobs without the union, but not journalism jobs. So I'm slowly but surely making the pivot into freelance journalism away from education, and I'll have more of an update for you guys in the next couple of weeks when I bring another special guest on, and we're going to make the huge announcement together about what I'm doing. And so I want you, Elena, to calm everyone's fears about stress about finding a job, because that can be a stress in itself.
Well, it's extremely stressful. Yeah, that's true. And I've been reading actually a lot in the last week. There's been a lot in the news, I guess, because so many people are graduating. There's been a lot about job market. And one of the things that's good is that apparently a lot of employers are hiring right now. And so I think the unemployment numbers are down. But one thing that's not such good news for people is actually they're reporting that the salaries are way down. And the millennials, I guess, are making a lot less than the baby boomers were making in the same job. So that's distressing. So I don't know what that's all about. I don't know why people are making less money. But the good news is that people are hiring.
Well, the good news is that, so, okay, let's use me as an example because I don't mind. So let's say if when I do make the pivot into journalism, and luckily I knew what I was going into this degree, but what if I am the typical college student who is not necessarily prepared for all the stress of finding a job. What should we tell them as they have this podcast in their headphones? I mean,
so in terms of, you're wondering, like, in terms of how to handle the stress of finding a job?
yes, because rejection, I applied for a job last week and it didn't work out. I got a call from a job I thought it was a communications job in the finance space. I thought it was remote, and they said, nope, you read the application wrong, and I said, thank you very much, but due to my physical disability, I'm not moving, and so they kicked me out the door. But, only because they put the wrong information on the application, and I was just looking at the remote job part. And so, what do we do when employer rejects us, and it's sorry we position is filled? How do we conquer the stress of that?
Well, the employer is not rejecting you, okay? So one of the important things to remember, anytime you get any kind of rejection on any application that you're putting in, it's not you as a person who's being rejected. It's the particular set of skills that you have does not match what the person is looking for necessarily, okay? And so, or oftentimes the position that they have is, not necessarily correct for, what you're offering, okay? Or oftentimes they already have somebody in mind too sometimes, and you don't quite fit that. But it's not you as a person, and I think a lot of times people are taking that very personally when they get a rejection. And so one important thing, to remember is it has nothing to do with you, and there will be a job out there that's kind of perfect for you. And there's, in some businesses there's something that's more of a matching process where they match you to various job descriptions, and it's a little bit easier to find a job that way. But when you're sort of blindly looking and you're just applying for jobs out there, it's a little bit harder to find something like that because you don't know exactly whether what you're offering will match the position. And so you have to kind of remember that the rejections are not quite personal. So people, I have a position where I hire people, and so people send me emails all the time. So I got an email this morning where the person was asking, for a job for me, and it was really, a person is perfect for the job, except for I don't have a job right now. I might have it, in a couple of months or in a while. So I had to reject her. But, I always try to make it very clear to people that I'm not rejecting you as a person. I just don't have a position for your particular skills right now. So I try to make that pretty clear, and I always I collect people's resumes and curriculum vitae, and I say, if I ever have a position for your particular skill set, I would like to utilize you. I just don't have one right now for you. And, some employers are able to make those types of distinctions because they have time or they have resources or their human resources are nice enough to do that, but some don't. I'm usually nice enough to do that, but other people don't have that ability. But you just have to remember that when you're applying, that it's not something that you didn't get enough education or you didn't get enough training or they don't like you. It's just that what they have does not necessarily match what you can offer.
But I'm talking about people that get stressed out way too easily, and trust me, we've had those people in my life, and we've had those things with people. How should we handle the stress while hunting for a job?
Well, you have to make kind of first of all, don't take it personally, like I said. You have to understand that this has nothing to do with you. And second, you have to make a pretty clear plan of how you're going to look for work and, make a list every day what kind of jobs you're going to be looking for and what you're going to be doing. And then you also have to have some backup plans. Like you have to say, all right, for the next few months, this is the kind of job I'm going to look for. And if I don't find it, what's my backup plan? What am I going to do next? And then if that doesn't work, what am I going to do next? Because if you're going to say, oh, this is the only kind of job I'm going to have, and then that doesn't work out, then you can get very anxious and you can get very depressed and you can get very stressed out. So like you said, well, the journalism is not working out, so I'm going to do freelance journalism. So you have a backup plan. So that kind of takes some of the edge off the job hunting because you know what else you can do. But some people, they tend to think, oh, this is the only thing I can do. And if they don't get that job, then this really sets you up for a little bit of failure in your mind, right?
Yes, and trust me, I've been doing journalism since I was 23 years old. I published a book at the age of 24. So I've been in this journalism book career. It's not my first time doing this, and trust me, journalism is something I really want. And I am not leaving my job because of any people. I'm truly leaving my job because of the paycheck. And, teachers don't get paid that high. And I buck and squawk, and people seem not to listen to me about how teachers should be paid higher. And, so that's why I'm leaving my job. But you work with kids and anxiety disorders, and so I know for HIPAA purposes you can't say the child's name or you can't say the family's name. But do you have any success stories that you want to share on your podcast?
Oh, we have success stories all the time. I have success stories every day. The fun thing about working with kids is that they're very motivated to get better. And so, especially with anxiety when it comes to working with children, I'm pretty well trained in doing what I do. So, I can pretty much treat any kind of anxiety disorder very successfully. So in terms of success stories, I have lots of them, any kind of phobia or any kind of anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, anything like that, that's very, very treatable. And I don't want to say that we can cure it, but we can pretty close to cure it in kids these days. It's pretty easy in pediatric psychology to do that kind of stuff.
And what made you go in to pediatric psychology? What drew you to pediatric psychology? Which, by the way, anyone in the pediatric field is my favorite person on the planet because, trust me, without you guys, I wouldn't be alive. Trust me, CP and mental stuff go hand in hand, and
right.
Physical issues go hand in hand. So anyone in the pediatric field is my hero/guardian angel. But what made you go into pediatrics?
Well, it was actually back in the 90s that I entered the field, and I wanted to work with couples and work more with divorced couples and things like that. But when I entered graduate school, they told me, there's this very interesting field that's kind of starting up. We're just learning about how children's mental health is very, very fascinating. And we're just learning how children cope with pain and how, children are starting to live longer when, they have cancer. And we're just learning about what happens with kids who are medically ill in the hospitals, and that they're surviving various medical illnesses, and then they actually have anxiety and depression when they're in the hospital, and doctors are starting to notice that. And then also we were starting to just learn that kids have post-traumatic stress disorder. Before that, believe it or not, nobody really cared about kids having post-traumatic stress disorder. So there was kind of a boom in children's mental health awareness. And I started hearing more and more about it, and I thought, why am I going to work with couples? A lot of people do that. I think I want to learn more about the kids. And then I kind of never looked back. The field just really kind of bloomed from there, and it was really, really interesting to me. And so I've been working in hospitals with kids since the kind of mid-90s.
So your school basically drew you to pediatric psychology.
Yeah. Yeah.
You went for a totally different direction, and no, school just said, this is a new field. You got interested, and that made history. Well, as I said, anyone in the pediatric field is my hero / guardian angel, because I would be messing without you guys. So there we go. And so what is the most difficult thing you have seen in your practice? I mean, can you give a description of what the most difficult thing you have seen?
I think the most difficult thing for me to see is when I see a family that has not been able to get help for a long time, and they come to me with a problem that, where the child is like 15 or, just an older kiddo, and this is the first time they've been able to get help, or the parents haven't been able to get help for mental health their whole life. And this is the first time they're seeing somebody and talking to somebody, and I see it's a problem that I could have fixed in a month or two, and they just didn't know that this was a problem that they could get help for. And I just feel so helpless, and sometimes I just want to sit there and cry, because it's like, why didn't I see you earlier? Why couldn't you get help earlier? So it's the lack of resources that I think a lot of times that's so upsetting to us. Or when people, because they couldn't get help, their mental health got so bad, that they have been wanting to hurt themselves or kill themselves. And it's just because they haven't been provided with good mental health treatment. And then people have kind of misunderstood them and didn't give them help. And so didn't need to get to that point.
Yes, and I agree. We have two huge problems in the U.S., and it's nothing having to do with a disability. One is the opioid crisis, and the other one is a mental health. Mental health is huge in this country. Jesus, mental health is huge. So I try to stay on the cutting edge of both. But okay, let's be realistic here. What can you recommend if someone who's listening to this podcast says, okay, let's face the demons and let's deal with my mental health problem? I mean, where do we go? Where do we go? Where do they go?
Well, if you have any kind of health insurance, you usually do have access to mental health. If you don't have insurance, unfortunately, in this country, you usually don't have access to mental health care. And that's really the issue. There's not really a good solution if you do not have health insurance. In some cities, they do have community mental health centers that will take you without health insurance. I know in my city we don't. There's not going to be any help for you if you do not have, sometimes
we do not. I know that. Where I am, I'm in Aspen, Colorado, and even you can't walk into my community health center with a mental health problem without insurance. I know that.
Right. Yeah, and that's really I think that's the case in many cities. I know in a lot of universities that there's a psychology program or a social work program or a counseling program. They will often see you for a very low fee for therapy, but even that is not enough because many people can't afford that low fee. It's still, $20, $30, and there's a lot of people, a lot of families I know that they can't afford that $30 every week. So that's still not a good solution.
Yeah. So now this leads me to my next question. What would be your dream for the mental health crisis in America? If you had a dream to fix the mental health crisis, where would we start by helping you with your dream?
Well, one of the things that would be my dream is that all kids could get free mental health care in schools. If you were in public school, that have access to free mental health. I love it. That would be a good start. And I think that trying to do that now here in Texas, actually, as backwards as we are sometimes in Texas, the governor is now proposing a telepsychiatry help that he's going to put before legislature here, that all the kids would have access to telepsychiatry. It's not really mental health care. It's just medicating kids. But, that's something that could be put in is telepsychology or, some sort of, social worker or counselor that could be available to kids. I mean, schools have counselors, but they're not actually being used for therapy. They're more being used for testing or just solving problems when they arrive. But if every school could have counselors actually providing mental health treatment, that would make a huge difference. If we could catch problems when they start in childhood, then a lot of adults would know how to cope with things because they've learned those skills when they were little.
I just realized that the secretary at my school, and I asked him point blank, I said, why are you dealing with, we have a diabetic student, and this student is very well-versed in diabetes. She's actually better well-versed now in diabetes as she gets older. And I asked my secretary, I said, why are you dealing with this life and death thing? I mean, diabetes is a life and death thing. And of course, we don't have a school nurse. And she goes, a lot of schools don't have a school nurse. And that just shocks me. And then she has to deal with this life and death thing. And a lot of schools, and I'll walk in this until I'm blue in the face about it, a lot of schools don't have the school counselor training. I'm sorry, but they don't.
Right, yeah.
And so, everyone in Texas, please vote for this bill just to make Elena happy. Please say yes. Please say yes, because that and Texas and Colorado are close to each other. So I'm hoping that my governor one of these days does the same thing in Colorado, because I buck and squawk and people seem to listen to me, but I just want kids to be happy and healthy, and part of physical health is mental health. I'm sorry, but it is. I mean, part of physical health is mental health. I mean, if you're stressed out, you're not going to help the world. So, Elena, what is your favorite book? And it doesn't have to be psychology related. It has to be a book that you go back to time and time again.
One of my big time favorites is 1+1. It's a book written by a British author, Jojo Moyes, and it's a romantic story, but it's more of a, I would call it women's fiction. It's a story written by, it's from 3 different point of views. It's got a teenager point of view and a man's point of view and a woman's point of view, and everybody's struggling with something. And it just has so many emotional stories and a romantic story and a teen being bullied and it's just so much conflict and so much fun, and it's just so many different layers in that story. I love it. I think I read it every winter. When winter gets to me, that's what I tend to read.
Yeah. Yeah. So 1+1 of you guys, you can probably go find that on Amazon, and you can probably go find that on Audible too
It's available on everything.
It's available on everything.
For you, but it's been, it was made into a movie, but that other book is
maybe for you.
More of my favorite.
Yeah. And so, Elena, if you had to be educated by anyone inside or outside your field, who would it be and why, and what would you ask them?
Right now I'm just so enthralled with The Handmaid's Tale, the show, but it's always been one of my favorite books. So I think if there's anything that I could learn from a person, I think I'd love to learn from Margaret Atwood. I absolutely love her books. I would always aspire to write like her, but also I think she has such depth of intellect that I would love to learn from her. I think I'd be very intimidated, terribly intimidated, but she's definitely one of my idols.
Oh, God, you would be intimidated by your teacher. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Oh, boy, I love it. I love it. So, do you have any questions for me before I tie this up? And, of course, we'll have all of Elena's information in the show notes. And if you guys are in the Texas area, you may want to go see Elena. I don't know. I don't know if she could help with, she can't help with physical stuff, with physical disabilities, but certainly she could help with mental disabilities. And I know there's HIPAA stuff that you guys have to sign paperwork out the yin yang. But if you're in the Texas area, please go see Elena. She's a wonderful resource. But before I let her go, I want her to ask me a couple questions.
One of the things I'd like to know is if you feel that there's a book out there that portrays people with disabilities in a sensitive and accurate way.
No. No. And I'm trying. I am trying my hardest to do that myself, but you're the second person that's asked me this question, and I actually have a book reviewer that reviewed my book way back when it first came out, and that was seven years ago now. And she asked me, should I read books about disabilities, and what would you recommend? And I can't think of anyone except Wonder, which is about Augie, and they made it in the movie, and it almost made me cry because Augie has a facial deformity and all this good stuff. And Julia Roberts played his mom, and it almost made me cry, and I went, because it was National Teacher Appreciation Day. As part of National Appreciation Day, I actually was given 2 tickets to the movie theater, so I saved those tickets for about a good year until Wonder came out, and so I went with my dad to the movies and we both cried and it's not good. But that being said, I don't think they portray people with disabilities well in books. And I am trying my hardest to portray people with disabilities well in books. I mean, unless you have a disability yourself, you don't really know. I mean, I was talking to a writer this morning who has a son with Down syndrome, and we were I asked him, I said, do you use your son's disability and your son into your books? And he goes, yes, on the occasion I do, not to make a big deal of Down syndrome, but I am having a hard time thinking that people portray people with disabilities in books.
Yeah, somebody asked me the other day, another writer, if I knew somebody that I could recommend that could help her write a character with disabilities, and I sent them to you because it's really tricky to write a character with disabilities.
That was very kind of And that being said, I would be happy. I'll put this out on the podcast now, but I would be happy to help people with disability related character questions because I want disabilities to be portrayed well. Elena doesn't know this yet, but she might be helping me with research for my next book in honor of my mom, because my mom passed away of meningitis, but before she passed away, she got severe depression in the hospital, thank you very much, which I'm going to be asking Elena a couple of questions offline, and so Elena may be helping me with that because I know that's a true statement. I've talked to psychologists about this, and they said it happens all the time with people that weren't diagnosed with depressions all beforehand, before going into the hospital. And trust me, I've been in and out of the hospital myself, and it's happened to me, and it's happened to all of us. So Elena may be helping me with my next book. But that being said, I'm happy to help you guys with character development for your books if you want to use disabilities and use disabilities, especially cerebral palsy. I'm happy to help you guys because I don't think disabilities are portrayed well in books.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, and it's really important to do that correctly in a very sensitive way. Yeah. Well, I'm happy to help you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. I need all the help I can get with this next book. I've given myself a deadline of starting it on my 31st birthday, ending it on my 32nd birthday, and yeah, meningitis. Here we go. But thank you. But I need help from the people in background, just because I want to portray it as I saw it. I also want to portray it in a good light. So, because depression is also huge in this country. So I kind of need Elena's help to portray it in a good light. As she was just saying to me, we want to portray disability in a good light. And depression is one of those hidden disabilities that you cannot see, but it's a disability in itself. I mean, it paralyzes people if you don't watch out. Figuratively, not really, but it paralyzes people if you don't watch out. And so I wanted to play hospital depression in the best light I can, because my mom, I know she had depression, and yeah, when I was with her, we had mother-daughter moment before they put her in medically induced coma, and I know she was depressed because she just wanted out of there. And one of the things she said to me, I said I'm going home, and of course she knew where home was, and she goes, "You lucky duck, you get to sleep in your own bed." And that just broke my heart because I know she had people there with her coming in and out, and my family came in and out, and her family flew from the Bahamas to where she was, and she just wanted to get home and live a semi-normal life. Unfortunately, it didn't happen that way, but that's what I knew. She was depressed, and the hospital still hasn't admitted 7 years later what they did. So I just want to portray depression in the best way I can. But Elena, do you have another question for me, or was that it?
That was it.
That was it. And my answer is no. They don't. They don't portray disabilities well in books. Depression from cerebral palsy. No, they don't. They don't portray disabilities well in books, and that's why Elena and I are trying to shine a light on everything we can in those all fields. I mean, I'm the expert in cerebral palsy here, and I am soon to be a journalist with cerebral palsy, but Elena and I are trying to portray the best light we can, and I thank Elena for coming on and sharing her story, and we'll have all of Elena's information in the show notes, and of course, Elena will be helping me with my project, and I know I'm roping it in to helping me with this book on meningitis, because I know people get depression in the hospitals all the time, and even though she works in the pediatrics field, it can happen to kids, it can happen to adults, so I just want to make sense of what my mom was going through and what I saw, and we'll make this meningitis book as pretty as we can, and I'll try and not to put too much emotion into it, but as you guys know, my mom and I were very close, and watching her get depression and then die wasn't the best on me, but I'm going to try and put this meningitis story together and ask Elena the questions that I need about depression, and we'll work on this together, and I may be recruiting a couple others to help me, but so if you get a call from me, don't be scared. You're helping me with meningitis, and you're helping me with just get disability awareness out to the world, and that's why I brought Elena on to talk about how we can help kids, and I appreciate Elena coming on, and I hope you guys have a terrific day. Welcome to June, and let's make this June rock and save the kids, and let's just do that. And thanks, Elena, for coming on, and we'll have all
You're very welcome.
Elena's information in the show notes. Bye, you guys.
Bye.